Welcome to the Gnostic Rebellion. Today we're speaking with Dr. Joshua Pritikin, author of a wonderfully interesting book that deals with a core theme here at the Gnostic Rebellion and the Gnostic book that deals with I'm sorry, and the Gnostic Church of Light. Religion Unburdened by Belief is the name of the book. We'll introduce him in a moment, but you'll find immediately below this video, in the description, you'll find a link for our donation button at uh, PayPal, and this program supports the Gnostic Church of Light. It's an historic building, and we invite you to become part of our historic congregation. We're the first fully owned and operating Gnostic church on the continents of the Americas, and your donations are tax deductible. While you do that, we'll extend this blessing. May wisdom and divine providence increase the unique genius of our congregation and bring us to health, wealth, and increase of days. Okay. Having earned his PhD in psychometrics in quantitative psychology from the University of Virginia, Dr. Joshua Pritikin, during his academic career, contributed to 10 peer reviewed publications and now maintains a practice in White City, Oregon. He runs Estrella Counseling and holds a level 3 certification with the IFS Institute, which perhaps we'll talk about a little bit later. But it is his book, Religion Unburdened by Belief, that brings us here today. Obviously. Well, now let's just take the client out of the picture for a moment and let's make this a dream.
Okay.
And pretty much any old dream, not a profound dream in the moment, but just pretty much any old standard, if there's such a thing. So now you take something that happened in the dream, you begin free associating that. You take the next thing that happened and you begin free associating that. Now you might not do this with just any old dream, but we all have those dreams where we wake up in the morning and they strike us for some reason. They, pervade our morning, maybe even our day, maybe even a week or longer.
Yeah.
And those dreams, when you start free associating off of them, they start to bring you to interesting thoughts, interesting ideas, and interesting places in your own psyche, right?
Okay.
So I think when we can tie dreaming in with the chemistry of conscious states or unconscious states, because there's the difference between that profound dream and the fact that you got a little indigestion because you ate a little too much for dinner. Right? That brings on a whole different dream. Then you're Charles Dickens. So we have these conscious states, a way in which the brain itself, the body, because we're talking about the interdependency of body and soul, where the brain interprets whatever the mind may be sending.
Yeah. So you're saying that there could be some like latent information in the dream that could be useful to uncover, and I grant that, but like I don't have direct access to your dreams. So when you're reporting dreams to me, I'm like, okay, here's a person that feels like their dream is important, and how is it important for them? Uh, so from my point of view as a therapist, whether it's a dream or not is not really important. It's like you're communicating something that you feel is important, and that's why I'm interested, right? Like it's
Well,
whether it's a
okay. So here then may be your patient burdening the dream with their own belief. And
okay.
you're
I mean,
certainly
so
not, you know what I'm
is it,
saying? You're not trying to apply any cultural idiom to this. Am I correct? In that.
I mean that sure. I mean, clients can bring beliefs about dreams into the session, but then like which part of them is believing that, and why is it important for that part to have that belief? Like, where did that belief come from? Um, you, when is that a familiar belief? When did you start believing that? Those are the questions I would start asking.
Right. Okay. So you're going right into the therapy. I think I'm trying to pull you away from the therapy and not put you in the patient couch, but put you outside of that whole thing again, put you in with your experience.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's my own
So,
dream. That's what you're saying, or
yeah, I think really I'm going at your own dream and your own experience of your own dreams, your own experience of um, free association in your own in the therapy that you've received. Um, uh, so that um, in some way uh, you could communicate more this idea of how you peel away your beliefs from your perceptions, because dreams are just a perception.
okay. So it feels to me like you're leading towards kind of the my approach to meditation is. Do you want me to go over that, or
Why not? Why not? Yeah.
okay? So um, most of there's many people have different ways of teaching meditation. So I'm just gonna pick a particular version of it, and like the details don't matter that much. Like uh, so, suppose I'm focusing on my breath, like that's the type of meditation I'm practicing. So um, the the process is that I would sit down. I need some process beliefs, like that I can sit still, that I can monitor my mind, be aware of what's going on, that I can focus on my breath, that I have volition, and so I'm doing this practice, and what everyone experiences is that you get distracted occasionally. Some part comes in, and you find yourself thinking about something else besides your breath, but besides attending to your breath. Um, and the usual instruction is just to let that go, or notice that you've become distracted and then return to your breath. And the risk in these instructions is that you're the risk is you may be ignoring a part of you that needs attention. And so a way to address that risk is before you shift your focus back to your breath, is to you could keep like a piece of paper and pencil or whatever pen next to you when you're doing this meditation practice. And as soon as you notice you're distracted from your focus, then you can make a brief note, like yeah, I'm thinking about dinner, or I there's
Crowley gives these same directions in his uh, approach to meditation. He
who does?
Crowley. These are
Okay.
you not only that, you write down the time and whether you did it right for 3 minutes 21 seconds and at 22 seconds
Oh,
to the 4 minute mark you spent writing the shit down and then you went back.
okay. Wow. That's a lot of detail. Maybe you can I didn't quite catch the name, but maybe you can share that later, or we'll link it in the episode.
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
curious to look
A
at
lot
that.
of people in the metaphysical community know Crowley,
Oh,
and
Crowley,
love
Aleister
yeah,
Crowley.
Aleister Crowley. Yeah,
Okay,
so
okay.
uh,
Yeah,
he-
but
he-
I'd be curious to see where he wrote about that. That would be a great work to cite, as like
I could give you two excellent links to both, his book on yoga and Magic and Theory of Practice, where the first half of the book is on yoga, and they're free. They're PDFs. You can get them online. Stupid easy.
Okay. Well, I guess I discovered it, or well, like it was independent. Like I wasn't aware of that, but I'm glad to hear that
But
it
it
wasn't
makes
my.
perfect sense for you to understand the breaks. This is natural.
Okay.
You
Well,
know,
I don't know how natural it. Well, I mean, it's
it
it
is
took me a
because
long time. Like I've been practicing meditation for like 30 years. So it took me a long time to figure this out. So so anyway, so you write the notes. So you return to your breath, and then after you're done with your meditation session, then you go back and review the notes and make sure you spend some time giving some attention to all the parts that needed your attention. And so you're basically doing two things when you do this. First of all, you're doing the obvious, you're giving attention to those parts. And the other thing you're doing is you're building trust. So these parts are learning that they can trust you, that when they need your attention, that they'll get it. Like you're making a promise to them when you note down on the sheet. And then you're also teaching them patience. So these parts of yourself, they're learning to be more patient, and so they will be more willing in the future to wait until your meditation session is over and before seeking your attention. So that's my spiel.
would you say that when you're in that space, you're looking at these parts, you're negotiating with them to put them at ease and at rest until you can get back to them, so that you can get this clear, internal situation fortified.
Yeah,
Um,
because in my opinion, the whole point of practicing meditation is to develop like an effortlessness so that when you sit down for meditation, like you don't have to have all this inner struggle. Like it's just easy.
would you call that state that you get into between the breaks? Would you call that state that you get into a view from nowhere?
Say that again. A what? You from nowhere?
A view from nowhere.
Um, well, but isn't it a view from yourself? Like it's kind of a resting in a resting in awareness or resting in consciousness.
Well, I mean, uh,
What do you mean by
I'm not
nowhere?
trying to say what's right or wrong here. I have this note that I wrote, and I believe this is quoted from your book, The Impossible Fantasy of a View from Nowhere. And
Oh,
it knocked me over because um, I'm a reader of Thomas Nagel
okay.
and his book, A View from Nowhere.
Uh,
The subject and the object views are both real and they must coexist. And that
yeah.
sounds like what you're saying in a certain way. So, for me, there is a view from nowhere.
You're saying that there is a view from nowhere, and
Yeah.
but I think the point I make in my book is that um, like it, the and where this comes up is like the scientific preference for objective measurement um, is if we can observe things objectively, that's great, but like ultimately someone has to be the observer. So so that the point I was making in my book is that there isn't a view from nowhere. So when you say that there is, like that makes me curious.
Um, well, we can look at what must be the transcendental point of the dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic, where we put two opposites, uh, not so much against each other, but correspondent with each other. And what we get from their admixture, their fusion, so to speak, we have the solve. When we get the coagula, that really is the transcendent point. And, if I'm going into a meditative state where even if the object is my breath, um, that becomes the object. You become one with the breath, and at one point you don't even hear the breath anymore.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Okay. So you're talking about like a non-dual state or like absorption where you like the subject object distinction dissolves and you find yourself um, lacking those distinctions.
can you imagine the formula 2 equals 0? So we have an annihilation
Yeah.
of two opposite sides.
Okay.
Okay. Um, but even the one must become none. To become one, that they got to become none. It's um because the one breaks out into two again.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm
Well,
saying?
so I mean uh I think I deal with that in chapter 6. I guess maybe you haven't read up to that yet.
Not
Okay.
yet.
All right.
I had enough going just through chapter 5. Chapters 1 through 4 were a bit easier only because of certain factors in the way you wrote it that made
Yeah.
it easy. Um, but chapter 5 um, caught my imagination even that much more so. That's all I can say, because I can see now as I continue on in my notes. Uh, um, I'm writing on clarity of mind. So you're moving in your discussion um, to clarity of mind. The New Age problem of vague categories, real and relevant categories should relate to meaningful aspects of mental functioning. And I'm sure that's me paraphrasing something off of what you said. Um,
Okay. Are you talking about um like clarifying our self-concepts, like how to use altered states to clarify our self-concept? Is that what you're getting at, or
I haven't moved to where in the chapter you're talking about altered states yet. That
okay.
last half I even pretty much leave unaddressed in my notes here because I didn't think we really need I really needed to keep notes. We're like so of the same chord on a lot of the things that you say,
Okay.
and it would just make more sense for me to just
Focus
leave
on the
myself.
differences.
Yeah. Well, leave myself to your expertise because I can't claim that same level. I can
Okay.
tell you about my experiences with psychotropic drugs and the sorts of things that I've done. I can share both the intelligent and the stupid things that I did and the stuff in between.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't put that down in my notes, and I still got a lot of shit out of your book. Um, Okay, so the New Age problem of vague category. Um,
Are you talking about states of consciousness?
um, yes.
Okay, let me just for the listeners, what I mean by states of consciousness is so there our ordinary state of consciousness, that's our ordinary waking state, and altered states of consciousness is anything that's not our ordinary state of consciousness. So like sleeping is an altered state, or being under the influence of cannabis is probably an altered state of consciousness. And so the issue with this terminology or this way of thinking about organizing consciousness is that the boundaries are fuzzy. So, um, for example, um, like like I get so I said sleep and waking are different, but they're like intermediate states between sleeping and waking. So you could be like half asleep or like in a light sleep where you're pretty alert. Like maybe you're watching for something to happen, but then you fell asleep, so you're like alert but asleep. Um,
Fuzzy boundaries, as I brought up before, which I probably brought up out of context. Um,
yeah, so that's what I'm
and
talking
it's
about,
important
fuzzy boundaries. Go
to
ahead.
be in a panic where there's room for intelligent thinking, but there's emotional distress to inhibit that intelligent thinking.
Yeah.
You're in space in between. You still have agency, but you can't really fulfill that well. So we get into these fuzzy boundaries, but I gotta ask because I think last time we talked about Buber and being held in between when entertainment. Is there anything that is not an altered state of consciousness?
Well, okay. So um, so what I'm doing in chapter 5 is building towards this conclusion or proposal that a better way of organizing states of consciousness rather than like waking, sleeping, cannabis, like these kind of categories, is to look at it from the point of view of internal family systems. So you just ask people, what parts are active for you right now, in that that's the way you define states of consciousness is based on um, what parts are active for you.
Yeah, what motives are going on in your psyche right now? Uh, but if everything is built on these motives and the strength and force and fire that we give to them,
Hmm.
uh, or the lack thereof, then what isn't an altered state of consciousness?
Right,
Can you
yeah,
point?
I mean, I think um, it's just a convenient label. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you that there's no real distinction between ordinary and altered states. It's just there's just states. Like it's
Yeah,
not like some are ordinary and some are not. It's just like everything is just a state.
the Buddhists are the most brilliant at uh, listing and in detail and understanding all the different trances of the mind.
Yes.
And I don't pretend to have anything near that sophistication, but I noticed in certain things that I did in my life. I think an excellent example is when I gave piano lessons. I got into a certain trance, a certain way I was approaching the material, responding to each student's needs specifically, working on obviously different material with each student at their level. But I would get into this like mode, this trance, because I could sit down at the piano with the student, and I know that I have a half an hour lesson, and I really don't feel like giving a piano lesson right now. But then I turned my mind right into the lesson, and the next thing you know, an hour and a half went by.
Hmm.
And them just they really appreciated it, and what I'm saying, but I completely lost that track of time, and I did it with pretty much every lesson that I had to begin
Hmm.
schedule part. um, and I enjoyed it. I didn't want to stop it. I didn't want to set a timer. I wanted the lesson to be a lesson. you know
Yeah.
and but the important point was the trance. When I got there, the trance of mind was I don't feel like doing this. I just got out of my car, it really like, maybe a nice drink, and I'm sitting, we'll chat for like 20, 30 minutes and then, find out what's going on. So, I go right in, I sit down, feeling tired. I worked all day. I'm doing lessons after teaching, right? And next thing you know, I'm really like I'm energized. I'm into it because I got into that
Hmm.
trip, got into that space.
Yeah, I mean that's very beautiful. Are you familiar with Csikszentmihalyi's flow states? Like that sounds like it might be a similar kind of thing as what you're describing.
High and low states.
Flow states, flow,
Oh,
FLOW.
flow states. I'm sorry. I don't hear consonants so well. Hearing issue.
No problem.
So flow states. I think it was with you the first time I really heard that phrase, flow state.
Okay.
You know, um, and I like it. It's an appealing phrase. I can see what you mean in terms of my giving those piano lessons. Why, like you're feeling the spirit, so to speak. It's just coming out of you. It's a flow
Hmm.
state.
Yeah.
And I think that has something to do with the idea of prophecy too. It's a flow state coming from the internal mind and it's flowing through. So this is where my thinking went pretty
Yeah.
quickly on, because I think there's something profound in that. And um, in terms of the individual, and in terms of the psyche, now we do have the self as a blended being and as an unblended, or we could say self-blended epoche unblended.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm following you there. Are you? Um, would it would it
I
help
think
to?
you have and maybe this was a note before my next note, or maybe this was just kind of a comment I was thinking about in my own self. The self is blended and unblended. The two states um, working together, you know, uh, playing off of it right now. This wasn't my intent when I wrote the note. Um,
Mhm.
I have certain neuroses still. I have certain um, psychoses still. It's part of my creative life. These are not destructive things necessarily, can be. Um, and I realize that there's nothing I can do about them. That I'm really kind of, they're fixed glue that I don't have the strength to work on if I want to accomplish other things, and they do feed what I'm trying to accomplish at the same time.
Mhm. Okay.
Complex, just trying to explain myself just a little bit so that I do bring that blended self with all this complexity. So I'm taking the idea of blended into complexity. And yet to function, even though I'm building off of that, I'm trying to get to an unblended space in my creative moment.
Okay.
Whatever creative project I'm on is an unblended space. I'll give you a perfect dialectic on Penrose's microtubules.
Hmm.
Uh, and I'll I'll get to a space where I almost have to let go of my own intellectual ability and kind of let something happen that as I'm examining it and writing it, perfecting whatever idea I'm writing down, um, I get to a space where I understand it, where I'm presenting something reasonable and rational, built on proper reference, etc. But to go back and grab it 2 minutes later in my mind that I don't have it anymore, so I'm holding.
Hmm.
Uh,
See, I think you're describing like this sense of like channeling inspiration, creative inspiration. Is that what you're kind of getting at, or?
in a certain sense, very much so. I am channeling a creative inspiration, and it is coming from a place that I don't have an intellectual way of describing to you. I don't have a rational way to describe to you this place.
Mhm. So, right. So, Csikszentmihalyi has some ideas in his research on flow that um, I'm not sure they really, uh, answer. explain this definitively, but like I think it gives some useful parameters. Like he was saying that flow is more likely when there's a balance between difficulty and the capacity you're bringing to the task. So, so like the task isn't too hard for you. It's not too easy. It's like the right difficulty that's like engaging. And that's like one of the main um, criteria that he has for increasing the odds of flow. And I know there's been more research on this. I'm probably not up to date on the latest, but and then aspects of flow or the loss of awareness of time passing and just the intrinsic enjoyment of it. So there's been a little research in this and trying to nail it down a little bit more than just like channeling inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're showing the intellect trying to come into the creative experience, right? And let's say that the creative experience, for argument's sake, is identical to the spiritual experience. That, we're forced to ask if the intellect can't apprehend it, the intellect can't wrap its mind around, then what good is the spiritual experience? So that we need one and the other, and maybe the emotional quotient as well, right? um okay, could you talk to us about the Varela Schwartz model?
Okay, sure. So the idea is that we have this um, internal internal family systems psychotherapy model that seems to work pretty well. Like it has empirical support, and I personally like it a lot. So like it resonates for me. But how to generalize it is the question, because like the way it's taught is you have um, certain assumptions you have about how your client's mind works, and then there's various sentences that you basically memorize, and you learn when to use them. Um, but
I
like there
read a
isn't.
note your
Go
writing
ahead.
was about Nietzsche's motives. And so, weren't you at some point in this dealing with some motives in the psyche in this inside of this model? Maybe you were describing certain different capacities of the person's psyche.
I'm not sure what you're getting at. Maybe maybe I could just keep going, and then if you maybe you'll figure it out in a minute.
Okay, let's hope.
So, but let me just keep like I was trying to continue my thought here. So anyway, the IFS model is there, and it seems great, but how do you generalize it? How do you extend its effectiveness to other activities? And so that's where the Varela-Schwartz model attempts to do, because neurophenomenology uh, is this research methodology where you can the idea is that you can uh, find mutual constraints between subjective experience and more objective ways of knowing. Um, and uh, so
Would you say that's a description of some kind of schizophrenic break intentionally applied?
no. It's
Okay.
let me try to explain it in with a concrete example. So there's these pictures like everyone's seen called audio stereograms, which they're two-dimensional pictures, but if you look at them a particular way, then they look 3D suddenly. And so so in this study that these scientists have done is they had some kind of brain scanning technology where they could take objective measurements of what's going on in people's heads while they're looking at these audio stereograms. And so, and then they also encouraged the participants to develop a vocabulary for describing their inner experience as they're looking at these audio stereograms. So there's like two sets of data. You have the participants' first person reports is one set of data, and then the other set of data is the data from the objective neuroimaging data, where they're studying what the participants' brains are doing some more objective way.
They're having a
And
subjective experience.
sorry.
All they're having a subjective experience.
Yeah, right. So you're measuring the same experience um, objectively and subjectively at the same time, and then so the mutual constraints is like you're comparing to the participants when they're describing their subjective experience. Then you show them the objective data, and then maybe looking at that objective data, they can refine their description of the subjective experience. And then it goes the other way too. So the scientists that are looking at the objective data consider the subjective reports, and then they may decide, oh, we should be measuring a different part of the brain, or maybe this signal means something different, like we're seeing these neurons firing here, maybe that corresponds to these subjective reports. So it creates these mutual constraints. So you're looking at this two different data streams on the same events, and that's how you can uh, um,
Well,
kind of improve.
I saw also the deliberate separation. This is why I had the note description of a schizophrenic break. I saw in what you said there, um, separating out the object and the subject, and
Okay.
while together it was one experience.
Yes.
We took them apart. Okay,
Okay.
and
Right. Yes.
um, solve et coagula. Take apart, fix, put back together. Or I shouldn't say fix, but perfect. Take apart, perfect, put back together.
Okay. Um, I mean, I guess so. Like that's not quite where I was going with this, but
That's what
maybe I'll just
it was.
continue my thought.
Go
Um,
ahead.
so anyway, so the neurophenomenology, there's this idea of using different perspectives to clarify what's going on in experience, and actually, internal family systems, was developed separately from neurophenomenology, but it's the same method. So if you like overlay them together, you realize that so in internal family systems, we don't have like third person objective measurements, but we do have second person measurements. That's like the therapist listening to the client report stuff, and then the therapist can help the client clarify,
I would
how
say
they
with
feel. Sorry.
objective, I would say with the objective analysis, the brain scan, that is, it may be a non-person, but it is the third person perspective.
Yeah. If you have a brain scanner, you can obtain
Whatever
third
that
person
data
data.
was, whatever that data was, that the brain was being, what parts of their brain were being stimulated. That objective data. I wasn't trying to bring in something new into your argument. That I was just saying is the third person perspective because it's not the first person's perspective. You may be reading his mind, but you're reading the mind with instruments, and that's a certain indirection. That's
Yes.
first. Hmm.
But so the in the ideal case, we would have third person objective measurements of the experience we're trying to study. But this equipment is like very expensive and hard to use. So and the method works pretty well if you just have second person measurements instead of third person. So
Right.
second person
But
means
the therapist should know that person reasonably well and understand their response.
yeah, right. So like what a therapist does is like second person measurements of your subjective experience. That's what a therapist is doing.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So that's all part of the therapy. I'm just taking your book and examining it from a magical perspective, shall we say, from a
Okay.
metaphysical perspective, right? I'm not a therapist. I'm not. Neither am I trained in psychology in any way. Um, just a reader of books in that regard, but nor do I have the ability to think as you think. As somebody who's been through that level of scholarship, I don't think in that way. Um, so I'm taking your book and I'm extrapolating from it because I find something so valuable in its spiritual presentation. And psychology and spirituality, I think, are getting so closely tied together that there's hardly a difference on so many levels.
That's the aim of this book is to unify them.
Yeah, well, why do you think I dig the damn thing?
Yeah.
um, it I know I've said this a couple other times, but what your book is doing is giving somebody like me who draws that hard line against belief a place to maybe find some middle ground that will still keep my um, intolerance intact. So
Yeah.
without bothering me psychically, so that I have to go jump off a cliff. Uh, um, and yet it offers me that little different middle ground. And I think in terms of our congregational network that might read the book, I think it gives them a little bit more than that. I think it gives them a way to interpret their belief structures uh, without my mediating. You provide another source, for approaching this.
Okay. So let me finish my thought here.
Okay.
So so I explained neurophenomenology, and I explained how that it lets you understand internal family systems as a way of using mutual constraints to to study objective experience. So using this model, the Varela-Schwartz model, lets you transport uh, this way of studying subjective experience to other activities besides therapy. And so that's what the rest of the book is looking at is how can we what activities can we find that map onto the same mechanism that we have in internal family systems but are faster and more efficient.
So, in other words, outside of the therapeutic model,
Yeah.
there is a way of modeling this to accomplish what?
Well, it's the goals are the same. Like you're trying to support human flourishing, just like you are in internal family systems. You're trying to develop human flourishing, but internal family systems is so slow and expensive. So the goal is to make it cheap and fast.
Or make it approachable outside of the professional experience, something that the individual can approach on their own.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. That too.
yeah. So, well, it's empowerment, right? I think
Yeah,
any valuable spiritual book, whether intentional or not, becomes something that delivers empowerment in some way, shape, or form, right?
yeah,
Or for the person to take from.
yeah.
It did something for me. So I can see, and I can see that it would do for others, which, as the leader of the church, I find
Mm,
inspiring. Here's another piece of material that we can, deliver that, is of value to our congregation. And that means a lot to me. Okay.
yeah. Good.
So,
Yeah.